Good evening, NFL fans, and welcome to a Wednesday night football edition of the Big D podcast. Before I introduce the special guest, please, all you need to do is subscribe, like, comment, share the Spunky Spectrum Sports YouTube page where you could see my U.S. Open preview. I like John Rahm to win the U.S. Open this weekend at Torrey Pines, so you can also see that. We've got a whole bunch of other content hopefully coming the next few weeks. So joining us from Santa Barbara, California is my friend Mike Hicks, or as he goes on Twitter, dropthemikeFF. So Mike, how's California?
California's good. Thanks for having me, Dylan. It's good to be here, and I love talking football, so let's get this going.
Yep. So first, let's start fantasy-wise. So what's your strategy regarding fantasy football? How do you manage your roster? Would it depend on like what league you in? Would it if you
Right now I'm doing a lot of dynasty right now, so dynasty. So a lot of it has to do with where I'm at dynasty wise. If I'm in a rebuild, I'm obviously going to handle my roster a little bit different than if I'm in win now mode or transitional mode. Like I have one roster that is a complete. Last year I started dynasty and I kind of dove headfirst and didn't really know what I was doing at the time. So I have one team that's a complete redo, and I've traded assets that are a little bit older, like Julio, people like that, for guys. I got like traded Julio and Matt Ryan for Brandon Aiyuk, Miles Sanders. Got younger talent, so it all depends on what situation you're in. But if you're in a rebuild, going youth is the best situation.
Yeah, Brandon Aiyuk's a real interesting player because I really like him going into this year. I think the big question in San Francisco is, will it be Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance throwing? Because the more I'm hearing, I think there's a chance Lance starts middle late this season. Am I crazy?
I absolutely think you are right on the money. I think he's going to not start week one, but he will start mid-year. He'll be the starter by week 8.
You're saying the 49ers are going to follow the Tua path in Miami?
I mean, they can't screw it up worse than the Tua they did in Miami. I think they screwed it up for Fitzpatrick and for Tua.
Yeah. Did you see Tua's 5 picks yesterday?
I heard about him. I mean, to me, it's a little overrated, but I get people's, worry because, with nothing going on in, football right now, any news is going to be news. So,
yeah, then Tua threw a couple nice passes today. So explain the difference between dynasty and a regular league, because to me, when I look at dynasty, I want young players. So I'm thinking like quarterback-wise, guys like Justin Herbert and Josh Allen would make sense over older, more experienced guys like Tom Brady. Trying to think of another older guy. Who's the
Matt Ryan.
Yeah, Matt Ryan would be another one. Big Ben would be a guy I do not want in Dynasty because he really faded the end of last year.
Yeah, so for your viewers that don't really know a lot about Dynasty, you have your startup and then you only draft rookies year after year. So you keep your entire roster. So eventually you're going to want to get younger, trade assets, whatever the case may be. When it comes to quarterback, I would take a older quarterback as a backup, but I agree with you that it's all about youth. Obviously being a Chiefs fan and just being a football fan in general, I love Mahomes, but I will probably never get Mahomes because it's hard for me to draft a quarterback that high. But I love Herbert. Another guy that I'm really high on, and you're talking about youth. If he can stand up straight because his offensive line isn't that great, give me Joe Burrow all day long. Herbert, Burrow, you mentioned Josh Allen. I love his upside because his rushing, he is the goal line back in Buffalo. Kyler Murray's the same way. But I have one person that I'm interested in is hear what you say because it's kind of the enigma this offseason. I am not that high on Jalen Hurts. Even though he has the rushing upside, he is young. I'm just not sold on him yet.
I'm confused about Hurts because there were some bright moments, but of course Doug Peterson pulling Hurts in that Week 17 game against the Washington football team clearly didn't make any sense because why would you look at the third string quarterback when you could have knocked your rival out of the playoffs? That makes sense, right?
I didn't get it at all.
I mean, maybe that's why it was canned. Maybe because the Eagles didn't. Be honest, I don't think the Eagles have drafted well the last few years. I mean, who was the wide receiver they drafted from TCU a couple years ago? He's not been great. Oh yeah,
Jalen Reagor.
Jalen Reagor. Oopsie. Yeah, you could have drafted Justin Jefferson.
That right there is just brutal. I mean, the fact that you could have drafted Justin Jefferson is just a nightmare. I mean, come on, Justin Jefferson is a beast.
I've got one. New England could have drafted DK Metcalf instead of N'Keal Harry.
Oh, you want to hear one too? The Chiefs could have drafted DK Metcalf instead of Mecole Hardman. But I actually had this discussion on Twitter yesterday, but I don't blame the Chiefs for drafting Mecole Hardman over DK Metcalf, and here's the reason. The year that we drafted Mecole Hardman was the same year that Tyreek Hill was being accused of child abuse and almost got suspended or kicked out of the league for a couple of years. That news came out 2 days before the draft. They thought they were going to have to replace Tyreek Hill. Hardman is more like Tyreek Hill than DK Metcalf is, so I believe that is why we went after Mecole Hardman. If we would have had Tyreek Hill and we knew we had Tyreek Hill and we drafted DK Metcalf, holy cow. I mean, I don't think we would have drafted a wide receiver if Tyreek Hill was in place.
I mean, you imagine the Chief offense this year with Patrick Mahomes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Cheetah, DK, Kelsey, and a revamped offensive line. Can I get the Chiefs in DFS or fantasy every week?
I mean, I honestly there was some rumors coming out of Kansas City that they contacted Atlanta about Julio. If that would have happened, I don't know how I would have felt about. I mean, you're saying DFS for sure. I don't know how I would have felt about season long because there's just too many weapons. But for pure football, that would have been an absolute nightmare for any defense in the league.
Who do you double?
Yeah, you double freaking Kelsey down the middle and Tyreek and freaking Julio go crazy.
Can I play with 11 defensive backs?
One rusher.
Yeah, 10 DBs, one rusher. Yeah, so who are a couple guys you really looking to draft this year, and who are you clearly avoiding?
Okay, so I know this is going to sound asinine for me to say I'm going to fade a guy. I'm fading Lamar Jackson.
Ooh.
And it's not that I think he's like horrible or anything like that. The system that they run, I think he's just going to run into roadblocks again. I just don't see him paying off where you can get other guys. If you're in redraft, I'm not saying I would rather have this guy over Lamar, but a guy that I am targeting at QB in redraft, if I'm going to like have the mindset of waiting on a QB, give me Matthew Stafford all day long. With that offense in LA, with Akers in the backfield, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Van Jefferson. They just drafted Tutu Atwell. They got Deshaun Jackson. I'm going to be targeting Stafford if I'm waiting on a QB. I do like for redraft. I know this is going to sound like a wild card, but if I was like waiting on a QB, Ryan Fitzpatrick, because I love the wide receivers they have in Washington. At running back, a guy that I'm fading, and I know a lot of people are anyway, I'm probably going to fade Josh Jacobs all day long, partly because of the system, partly because they got Kenyon Drake in, and partly because I was high on him last year, and it kind of bit me in the rear end.
And partly because Vegas's offensive line is, I have no idea, other than Cole Miller.
They're suspect at best.
Yeah. I like your Stafford pick. In fact, I really like Stafford this year. He's finally out of the toxic situation in Detroit. He's got a competent head coach, good offensive line. I really like Stafford and Cam Akers this year. Second year running back. I mean, Cam was great in that playoff game against the Seahawks. Now he's got a full off season in the same offense with a better quarterback. I mean, give me the Rams every day in fantasy.
Oh, hands down. And the other debate that I've seen on Twitter lately is who would you rather have, Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods? And for some reason, I am taking Kupp all day long over Robert Woods. Not that Robert Woods is bad, because I've drafted him in a couple of mocks that I've done or whatever. But if I had my choice, I'd be taking Cooper Kupp.
Can I have both of them?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so who are the wide receivers and tight ends you're looking to draft and maybe fade?
all right. So at wide receiver, I really like this guy, but I am fading Tee Higgins only because I just don't trust the ball being spread around to three wide receivers now, because Joe Burrow did like Tyler Boyd. Then they come in and bring in Jamar Chase. I'm interested to see what happens in Tennessee with the whole A.J. Brown-Julio situation. I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. One wide receiver that I am targeting a little bit lower, like as a wide receiver 2/3, is the guy that's going to be taking over Julio's spot, and that's Russell Gage. Obviously, he ain't going to be a 1 because you have Ridley there, but I do like Russell Gage. Darnell Mooney is another guy I like a little bit lower, but me and you both talked about him a little bit ago. Justin Jefferson, if you're going high-end wide receiver, I would rather have Justin Jefferson over Davante Adams, over Davante Adams. And partly the reason is I really do think that Rodgers is going to be gone by the time the year starts.
You saying Rodgers will be in Denver or the full-time Jeopardy host?
I believe so, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, and I will be wrong again. I mean, that's just gut feeling. But one rookie that I love this year, and I'll say this, he was my WR2 before the draft, and he's my WR2 after the draft, rookie-wise. Even though he went to a team down south, Jalen Waddle.
Ooh. You thinking what I'm thinking? It could be two to Jalen Waddle running 9 routes all day?
I hope so. I've drafted him in a lot of rookie drafts.
And has Jalen Waddle stayed healthy even in college? No.
No, I know that's the concern. I totally understand. That is the one major concern to me. If Devontae Smith would have gone there instead of going to Philly, he probably would have been my WR2 after the draft. But I don't, like we said, I just don't trust Philadelphia right now. So that's why I couldn't put Devontae Smith as my WR2.
I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in Miami this year with Water, Will Fuller, Devontae Parker. Here's the question. Who do you take first as a Dolphin receiver, Devontae Parker or Jalen Water? Because if you ask me, I'd probably take Water.
I'm taking Waddle all day long in that. I know we were talking a little bit about DFS, and best ball. I would take a flyer on Fuller because even though we all know that Fuller might only be on the field for 8 games a year, 3 of those he'll score, a touchdown and 90 yards on 2 catches.
You might go 3, 120, and 2 scores and then make you rich.
Yep.
So now we talk about your Kansas City Chiefs. So I know the Super Bowl did not go well. The Bucs kicked the crap out of Mahomes, but this year it looks like the Chiefs are back at being, if not the best, maybe 1A. I mean, the offensive line's totally revamped. I mean, Mahomes looks like he'll be fine off the toe injury. It's Clyde Edwards-Helaire's backfield. Sorry, Le'Veon Bell, but you're not coming back to Kansas City.
Nope.
Cheetah, Kelsey, and the defense, and maybe not a great defense, but maybe a situational defense. Is that the right right word to use?
Yeah, I agree with that word, but the other one that I will use, because this is what I've also heard about Spagnuolo as the defensive coordinator when he was in New York. He's a bend, don't break kind of guy. Once they get into the 20s, once we get into the red zone is when the defense likes to tighten up. I will say about the defense, the one ad that I love on the defense, the one person in the draft that we got on D, Nick Bolton, the inside linebacker out of Missouri. I've been very hard on the team's linebackers for years right now.
Oh, lack of linebacking.
Yes, lack. I mean, Anthony Hitchens is good, but when Anthony Hitchens is your best linebacker for 2 or 3 years, we haven't had a good linebacker since. We haven't had a stud linebacker since Derek Johnson. And even though, and I'm going to go back a little bit, even though we had Dontari Poe, and he was the workout warrior, and he did good for a couple years on the front, he got drafted 1 pick after Luke Kuechly. If we could have ended up with Luke Kuechly instead of Dontari Poe, I don't know. Who knows? Luke Kuechly had injuries in Carolina, but that would have been a miracle.
Hey, you know what? Then you wouldn't have. Hey, by getting Dontari Poe, you could recreate the biggest fat man to ever throw a jump pass.
Mm-hmm.
In that crazy Sunday night game a few years ago.
I remember that.
So if you look at the Chiefs' schedule, it is a brutal schedule. How about week 1 and 2? You get Cleveland, Baltimore. So week 1 and 2, you could be AFC North champs in 2 weeks.
That's going to be tough. Going to Baltimore is going to be tough. It seems that we have Baltimore's number, but you never know year to year. I will say the Cleveland game does scare me. I was on a podcast last year, right before we played Cleveland in the playoffs. And that team, I'm talking just not the 2020 Browns, but just the way that system's ran with Kevin Stefanski at head coach, is the perfect tornado to beat the Chiefs because of the running game. When you can bring Chubb and Kareem Hunt at the same time, two-headed monster, and anytime Kareem Hunt is going to play the Chiefs, he's going to want to prove that we shouldn't have let him go, even though we all know our hands were tied.
Yeah, and plus, I think of one stadium that is highly underrated and really missed its fans last year, M&T Bank Stadium. is super loud. If that game would have been played in a full stadium, I think it would have been a different outcome. The fact that the Chiefs could hear their snap calls,
Yeah.
decisions made the game so easy, and Lamar was just, and once the Chiefs got ahead, Lamar was not the same play.
No, and I mean that's I think just a systematic thing that Baltimore can't play from behind just because their system doesn't lead in that way. The
So,
one thing, yeah,
go ahead.
the one thing that I do want to say about the Chiefs offense, obviously you have all the weapons. I do have one worry, and it's not the offensive line, and it's not Mahomes, obviously, because if I'm worried about Mahomes, there's something wrong with me, not Mahomes. But the thing that I am a little worried about is I do not trust Mecole Hardman as our wide receiver too.
Ooh, yeah.
I was hoping to get Juju. I mean, Julio was like a pipe dream, but I really thought we could have got Juju. There's a couple other guys. The other one that I really wanted and now I really wish we got because the decisions that team has made is Corey Davis. If we could have brought Corey Davis in instead of him going to the Jets, which I think was a cash grab, because the Jets all now have like 4 or 5 receivers because they just restructured Jamison Crowder's contract. Mecole Hardman to me is not a real wide receiver too. He's too much like Tyreek to be on the other side, and he's too much of a gimmick play. The Chiefs need another punch because just like in the Super Bowl where you said we got our butts kicked, which we did, people can bracket and shade Kelsey and Hill and make Mecole Hardman beat him, and I don't think he's that type of receiver.
I'm just thinking the one difference I saw between your Chiefs and the Bucs in the Super Bowl wasn't necessarily wide receiver 1, wasn't wide receiver 2, but who caught a key touchdown pass late in the first half? Antonio Brown.
Wide receiver 3.
Oh, wide receiver 4 if you count Scotty Miller, but that's a story for another day.
Oh yeah, Scotty Miller is no joke.
I'll tell you, that dude runs.
He's Tom Brady's version of Wes Welker or Danny Amendola.
He's like Scotty Miller's like Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, but fast. He can run 4.35 or whatever.
Yep.
So what will be the most challenging game of the year for the Chiefs?
The most challenging game for the Chiefs this year. I got a couple. If the team stays the way they do, Green Bay.
Ooh.
Obviously that's if Rodgers stays. The other one that I am worried about, and it's a divisional game, and usually if we split, we're happy. But I think they're 1 year away from being real dominator.
Chargers?
But watch out for exactly. Watch out for the Chargers. I do think the Chargers are that 1 year away, but, I mean, we don't know what the new coaching staff's going to do, but you have to be afraid of a team that can pull out Herbert, Eckler, Keenan Allen, and
Mike
Williams. And their defense is no joke either. I mean, they keep getting better. I play a little bit of IDP when it comes to fantasy, and Derwin James, when he's healthy, is one of the best 5 safeties in the league. He has a hard time staying healthy, but if they can keep him healthy, Bosa, Kenneth Murray, the linebacker that they got last year from Oklahoma, their defense is going to be stout.
If they could ever stay healthy, because it seems like every time Derwin James tries is almost on the field, boom, he missed his time, and it's like, oh no.
I will make a joke here. I mean, at least he's doing it to himself, and the doctor's not puncturing his lung.
Hey, Hey, Justin Herbert probably owes that doctor a dinner or two. Because of that, he got on the field way earlier than he would have. I mean, he came on the. I watched that. I'm like, what?
And don't forget, that was against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and to be honest, he probably should have won the game.
No, they should have won. They should have won that.
I mean, the Chargers should have won like 3 or 4 of those games. I mean, the Saints game in the Dome, Herbert should have won. Even the game in Tampa, Herbert played great against Brady. It's just that Tom Brady's to go.
Well, I also think that one of the reasons Anthony Lynn was let go of his head coaching duties there is he could not manage a clock.
Yeah. Yeah, a few of us can't manage clocks nowadays. So now we get to the fun part. Now I've got a trivia question right up your alley.
All right.
In the first 5 picks of the 1989 draft, there were 4 Hall of Famers.
Okay.
Could you tell me the Chiefs pick and where he went to college?
Oh, Derek Thomas, Alabama.
Okay, now could you tell me the other 3 Hall of Famers in the top 5?
I think I know one. Troy Aikman, UCLA. Barry Sanders, Oklahoma State, and give me a hint.
He was not just a football player.
Prime time.
Yep.
Okay,
that was too easy.
I'll tell you a story why it was too easy. Deion Sanders is just the greatest, one of the greatest running backs ever to play. Deion, I should have known.
You mean Barry?
Yeah, Barry. Yeah, oops. Here's the thing with Derek Thomas and Troy Aikman. I'm a UCLA fan, so that helps with Troy Aikman. However, the reason I became a Chiefs fan, actually, one of my first memories of being a Chiefs fan has to do with Troy Aikman and Derek Thomas. My dad started playing fantasy football in 1983. So he never really had a team. He was always cheering for his players. His best friend grew up a Len Dawson fan back in the day, and he had a son. My dad's buddy had a son that was my age. So I would always hang out with them and became a Chiefs fan. That year, the Cowboys played the Chiefs, and they both sucked, obviously. Whoever won that game, or whoever lost that game, it was later in the season, was going to be on track to have the number 1 pick. So my dad's buddy was actually rooting against the Chiefs, even though he was a Chiefs fan, because he wanted Troy Aikman because we didn't have a quarterback, obviously. So I remember that, and we won the game. We ended up getting Derek Thomas. Love it. But when Todd Blackledge, besides Patrick Mahomes, when Todd Blackledge might be the best quarterback you've drafted, you have issues. And the problem with Todd Blackledge is he was drafted in the 1983 draft class.
With 3 Hall of Famers.
And he was drafted ahead of 2 of them.
Oops.
He was drafted ahead of Jim Kelly
and Dan
Marino.
Yeah, I can remember, even though I was 9 years after that draft, I can remember seeing the old videos of that draft, wondering what would have happened if the Chiefs had taken that guy named Jim Kelly or Dan Marino. Just saying.
Oh, it's everything. I mean, there's all these ebbs and flows. I mean, what would have happened if Eli Manning never would have got traded to the Chargers? I mean, if we would have drafted Jim Kelly or Dan Marino, we never would have had Joe Montana, even though I know he was later on in his career and was an afterthought after San Francisco.
Hey, got you during the AFC title game.
Oh, he took us to an AFC title game and then lost to Buffalo. I mean, I think that was one of the years they lost to Dallas, and I don't think anybody was beating that Dallas team that year.
No, not for free agency. I think the Cowboys ruled the 90s.
Yep.
Yeah, and funny, week 15, Jets Rams. I'm a huge Jaguar fan, if you can see in the background.
Yep.
I was rooting so hard for the Jets to win. I'm like, come on, Jets. And then the Rams just laid an egg, and I'm like, you're kidding me. We're going to get Trevor Lawrence. And then I'm like, you're kidding me. We just won the Trevor Lawrence Bowl.
I mean, Trevor Lawrence is going to be interesting. And here's the reason I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be interesting. I have no problem with Trevor Lawrence.
It's going to be Urban Meyer?
Thank you. I don't trust him yet. I mean, he can earn the trust as a fantasy football player. If I had to bet right now on Urban Meyer, I would say he's more like Nick Saban than he is Pete Carroll, in the sense of meant to be a college coach and not transition into being a pro coach.
Well, here's the difference between Nick Saban and Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. Nick Saban did not get Drew Brees and got Dante Culpepper coming off of a wacky knee injury. Urban Meyer has got Trevor Lawrence, the best college quarterback we've seen since Andrew Luck, if not Peyton.
And don't forget, he also has Tim Tebow.
Oh, gosh. So, yeah, oh, gosh. So, will there be more Tebow jerseys or Lawrence jerseys in Duval County?
Right now, it's Tebow Duval County. But I will say this: I do think he's making the starting lineup. I'm not the starting lineup, but he is going to make camp. He's making camp. He's going to be on the roster week 1.
Oh, so that means Tim Tebow would be playing tight end week 1 against the Houston Texans.
Yep. He might not start that game, but he'll be on the field.
So that means Lawrence is going to throw a jump pass to Tim Tebow.
Or it could be the other way around for all we know.
Oh, no. Yeah, and then all Trevor Lawrence DFS owners are like, shoot. Why did I draft him if Tebow's going to throw all these jump passes?
Exactly.
Oh, man. You're breaking my heart.
All right, since you're a Jaguar fan, I actually do have a question for you.
Oh, yes.
What do you think about them lining up ETN at wide receiver? I don't know about that.
Be honest, I actually kind of like it because I think ETN was a great receiver the last year or so in Clemson. And be honest, you can't keep James Robinson on the bench. I think having Robinson and ETN playing together would make a lot of sense. And plus, the way the NFL is going right now, you need your running backs as receivers. I mean, you see Christian McCaffrey line up at wide receiver, Alvin Kamara's lined up all over the field. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah. And I love DJ Chark, so hey.
Plus, Leonard Chenault, who's the Jacksonville's not exactly bare on offense now. Defensively might be another issue.
Yeah, they're not bare on offense at all.
We're going to give up points.
Well, I think there's a lot of teams this year that are bend and don't break, kind of give up points and have to outscore.
Hey, you know what? New England gave up a lot of yards, but it seemed like every game New England forced you to kick field goals.
Yep. And that's going to be an interesting team, too.
Yeah. Will it be Cam's team, or when will Mac become the quarterback?
I still think it's Cam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so thank you for hopping on the podcast, Mike. Where can people find you? It's Drop the Mike FF, correct?
Yeah, you can find my tag, Drop the Mike FF, and you can find my writing over at Going for Two.
Yeah. So thanks for hopping on, and thanks for making this podcast very interesting.
Not a problem.